My next guest, a familiar face on the Neil Oliver Show, David Crayden, joins me next. My next guest this evening is a familiar face for those familiar with the Neil Oliver Show. He is journalist and podcaster David Crayden from Canada. And he joins me now to discuss, amongst other things, the online harms bill in Canada. It's lovely to see you, David. Welcome.
Oh, it's so nice to be back, Neil. Thank you for having me on.
David, I'll be quite honest with you. In these often depressing times, and I know what's going on here with censorship and silencing, I look to Canada and I think, well, Canada's even worse. which is a fairly negative place to go in search of a positive. But bring me up to date. Reassure me that it's still the case that other people have it worse than we do.
Well, the Online Harms Act is yet to have its second reading. And of course, our parliamentary system in Canada is exactly like yours in the UK. Bills require first, second, and third reading before they go to the upper house. So we've managed to keep this bill from going to second reading. The House is going to recess in a week. So I think we're going to get into the summer without a second reading of this Online Harms Act, which is good because it ups the possibility of this bill not passing before the next election here in Canada, which is October 2025. This is the bill, of course, that's the Internet Censorship Bill, creates an Internet Censorship czar, creates another layer of bureaucracy that people can go to complain about so-called hate speech and hateful content. And it even has a thought crimes component. You can actually be held at house arrest with a bracelet on your ankle because somebody down the street thinks you might say something hateful because they just suspect you of being that sort of person. So obviously, I'm a prime candidate because I'm always saying controversial things on the air, as you would be too, Neil, if you lived in Canada. So we need to stop this bill. It's not just an affront to free speech. It's a savage attack on free speech. And it's the worst law that I've seen anywhere in the world. I mean, this is worse than anything you find in authoritarian countries, which Canada really rapidly is becoming an authoritarian country. I would say. I don't think there's any debate about that.
I could possibly. I see you're three of a kind, and I'll raise you a full house in as much as Humza Yousaf, the dear departed First Minister in Scotland, saw to it that he would criminalise what people were saying in their own homes. But by which I mean that a hypothetical situation would be that, people sitting around the dinner table of an evening in their home, doors shut, curtains drawn, father says something a little bit off colour about something or other, and the child repeats it in school the following morning. A teacher perhaps or another child hears it, and a process of events unfolds whereby the police knock at the door to say, we have reason to believe that in here, in the privacy of your own home, you said something we don't like the sound of. So around the world, Canada absolutely included, the autocrats, the totalitarians, the whatever you want to call them, the authoritarians. There's a lockstep element to those that wish to have control over thought and speech in every place and means.
Yes, it's globalist. Australia is doing the same thing. The United States is in the same direction. But that little anecdote that you shared about life in Scotland under thought crimes there, this sounds exactly like Nazi Germany or the Soviet Union, doesn't it? Where people used to say that they only felt safe at midnight in bed because nobody was listening. Of course, somebody could be listening in the house and then report it, and you've got the police at your doorstep, as you say. So this is just a gross attack on privacy, on the sanctity of speech in the home, and it should disgust people. It really should. Not just anger. It should disgust people that any government, so-called democratic, would try to foist this kind of nonsense on an unwilling public, and to say it's all about safety and it's all about preventing harm for children. There's already a plenitude of laws against child pornography and against revenge porn. This has nothing to do with that. This is Trudeau's obsession with keeping people's mouths shut. and not opposing his regime, his dictatorship. And you can see what happens when you oppose Justin Trudeau's dictatorship. He calls out the police on you. He freezes your bank account, as the Freedom Convoy discovered when they dared to protest his COVID-19 mandates. There is severe repression. And that's the kind of man Justin Trudeau is. He is a true autocrat. A lot of people joke that his father really was Fidel Castro, and he acts like Fidel Castro quite a bit, actually. So,
Greg, the word disgust there was used. I listened to what David's saying, and Nazi Germany and so on. But I'm also minded of when during the Cold War in East Germany, at the height of it, it was estimated that 1 in 4 people were informers for the secret police.
Ratting on their own family.
Which implied that every family had to have an informer, in theoretically informing on the family as well as on the neighbours and everybody else. But we have to pay so much more attention now, don't we? Because apart from flesh and blood humans as informers, the technology's there to do the job as well.
Yeah, everything's recorded. And Trudeau, I totally agree with David. He might be the worst leader in a world right now where the leaders are pretty pathetic, but he's stealing the show. Starting with the truckers and the debanking. But, he doesn't have the excuse of having dementia like President Biden, right? He's just a really bad guy. I can't say enough about him. I hope I never meet him. But I can't wait for 2025 when he can be voted out.
David, it's my contention really that these people, Trudeau arguably being the worst, let's say, are motivated really primarily by fear. They are frightened people, and ultimately what they fear most of all is everyone else. They're like arachnophobes who, when confronted with a spider, however small and harmless, their first and only instinct is just to stamp on it or to hit it with a rolled up newspaper because they're terrified of something that actually poses them no threat. And I think that what we're seeing, we seem to have evolved an ecosystem where people like that have not just survived, but they have thrived and actually risen to the top of the ziggurat, so that we're being ruled over by the most frightened people on the planet.
Well, you often talk about the kleptocracy that is in place throughout much of the democratic world today, throughout Europe, the UK, and North America. And I think that's part and parcel with it. There's a high degree of incompetence that I think instills fear that people will find out how incompetent these people are. And they don't want opposition. They cannot brook any kind of opposition because, my God, somebody is going to find out how weak I am, how intellectually vacuous I am, how laden with hypocrisy I am, what a complete narcissistic individual I am. And that certainly describes Justin Trudeau in spades. That's exactly the sort of individual he is. He's grossly incompetent in areas. He doesn't think a budget needs ever to be balanced. He wants that a budget balances itself. And he has doubled the national debt since he has been prime minister. He spends twice as much as he takes in. I mean, that's a fact of life. The last budget did this exactly the same thing. And he just passed a capital gains tax that he claims is going to be on the very wealthy or the wealthiest Canadians, but actually it's going to affect the middle class who's trying to buy a business or sell a business or trying to sell their cottage, because it's at $250,000 and above, which is, of course, peanuts in the market today. That's not millionaire value. That's not millionaire pricing. That's a middle class pricing. He's raising the capital gains tax this month from 50% to 66.7%, meaning the state's going to take 2/3 of your gain. That's obscene. But it's another nail in the economic coffin, of course, because Canada's on the verge of a complete economic collapse, even though he loves to say we're the best in the G7, the highest credit rating. It's all nonsense, of course. These people live in delusion and fear and delusion. I think you have encapsulated it by saying the fear is the driving force, but there's delusion as the other bookend here. They live in complete delusion.
David Crayden, I could listen to this indefinitely, actually, but once again, I've run out of time with you, but it's been a delight. Thank you so much for reassuring me that the way that you feel about so much that's going on in terms of censorship and silencing. I'm not a lone voice.
Thank you for watching this episode of Stand on Guard and being a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right channel. If you've watched this episode to this point, you've watched it all. And that's really important for a small station like this. We always say subscribe, hit the bell, be a part of the KRAYDEN resistance. Resolve to resist. That's what we're doing. And if you become a subscriber, if you're a supporter of this station or a member through Substack, through YouTube, and now you can be a local as well, that's so important to us because I couldn't do this without you. I made a decision to become an independent journalist about a year ago because I wanted to bring all of my experience in the military, in journalism, to you. I don't promise anything I can't deliver. I don't offer clickbait. I offer truth. The truth is out there, and it's my job to bring that truth to light and to you. Thanks for being a part of the KRAYDEN'S Right resistance, and we'll see you again soon.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need a political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.